everyone, welcome to Screams After Midnight. I'm Peter and that is Tim.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about horror movies, and this episode is Freddy's Dead. I'll stop. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That is like everyone's just crying and screaming for mercy. But yes, we talk about horror movies on this show, and Tim's here. That's him over there, and it's October. It's the October-thon. We're doing all these extra episodes. No idea how many we've got yet because we're recording this way in advance, but hopefully tons of them. So we have been working our way through a bunch of franchises, and obviously one of them is Nightmare on Elm Street, which we started on the October-thon in 2017. It's been 2 years, and we've just hit number 6 here. Now, the reason why that this one feels like it's taking a bit longer is because we had to make sure it stayed in sync with Friday the 13th, so that when we get to Freddy vs. Jason, it's the right place for both of them. But of course, Friday the 13th has a couple of more movies, so there had to be a couple of times where we did a Friday the 13th and not a Nightmare on Elm Street, and because of that, it's taken a while, especially this year because we ended up accidentally starting like 5 more franchises, so the rotation's been taking longer, as you could imagine. So, yeah, so this is number 6. This is the one where they threw out the naming system. And they said, no, it's not going to be called A Nightmare on Elm Street anymore. It's going to be called Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Which, notably, they kind of did like a matching thing with Jason's Dead, The Final Friday. Like, they slightly wanted both to have like this... Which was weird, because they just got the rights to Friday the 13th, like, with that movie. Like, because it was Paramount before, but that's a conversation for when we do that movie. But, yeah, so... I was not looking forward to this one. This was definitely the one out of the franchise, with maybe the exception of the remake, that I was kind of dreading. We'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you warning before we go into spoilers, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. So this came out in 1991, 2 years after 5, directed by Rachel Talalay, and initial thoughts, Tim?
Well, first of all, I gotta say, right now I feel like an Elm Street kid because I barely got any sleep this weekend. So I guess it is a little apt that we're doing this while I'm very tired. So weirdly enough, I feel like I've spent a lot of time with this movie lately just because another horror podcast I listened to, Halloweenies, just did a big, like 2-hour long review of it. And then actually yesterday I was at a friend's birthday party and I brought it up to a friend of mine that was there, and then we actually ended up having a long conversation on it because he's actually a fan of this movie, which I found surprising. But it was we went into why, and we had some interesting.
I hope you mean ex-friend now. Thank you very much.
he did have some interesting points. I'll give him that, but. And since it has been a while since we've done these movies, just to kind of recap, like, I am a huge Fred head. I'm a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It's my favorite, horror franchise. I say Evil Dead 2 is like my favorite horror movie, but Nightmare is like probably my favorite franchise, horror wise. And up until now, I think everything, I don't think they really had any misses. Like, I like 1, I like 2, I like 3. Some people say it dips after that, but I really like 4, and I still think 5 is pretty good. And then this is just like just like a big swing and a miss.
I'm not I've not got the same chart as you do. I 1's a great movie, 2's an interesting movie. It's actually kind of enjoyable, but it's not. It's kind of weird. 3 is my favorite. I love 3.
3's good.
4, to be fair, before we did it, going through this franchise, and this was like a year ago now, we did like 4 at this point, or close to it. I didn't remember thinking 4 was that good, and I was actually pleasantly surprised that, despite the fact that it does some things to piss me off at the start, killing off characters from 3 and stuff like that I actually, this is actually kind of fun and kind of goofy and in the right way. I will fight you on 5. I wasn't into 5. I thought 5, crossed over the line into just kind of being bad. But
yeah, like I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, of the first 5, yeah, 5 is definitely the weakest, but I still think like I still like it, and I do think there are still like like fun kills and stuff in it. There's definitely weak parts to it, but I'll still defend 5. Uh, yeah, this is
Do-
kind of hard.
Here's a bit of trivia for you, Tim. Do you happen to
Yeah.
know off the top of your head, without
Yeah.
looking it up, what the tagline on the poster for Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare is?
Uh, Not off the top of my head.
Because I'm looking at it right now, and
Okay.
I just caught it in the corner of my eye and thought,
Yeah.
those those bastards. The tagline at the top of the poster reads, "They saved the best for last."
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's really not accurate at all. So and do you know originally who was supposed to write? Well, I guess maybe not like technically this movie, but who was supposed to or who wrote the script for the 6 Nightmare movie originally?
I don't actually. What do you mean?
Peter Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
it's actually it sounded like an interesting concept too. Like it was like a I don't know if the script is available to read anywhere because I've never actually seen people like post it, but I've heard people talk about the idea behind it, and which I guess kind of the premise was going to be that like it was like a couple years into the future or whatever, and like Freddy was supposed to be kind of like a joke and a has been, and like wasn't really able to kill people anymore. He had just kind of gotten really weak, and teenagers would actually like take like sleeping drugs or whatever to fall asleep and then go and like beat him up and stuff. But then I guess um, somehow he ends up like killing someone and then slowly starts to get his power back. So it sounded like an interesting idea, but um, they ended up scrapping that and then went with sorry, I forget her name, but this woman, I believe she like started off. She's been in New Line for like a long time. So like I think might have like started off being like maybe
Rachel
this.
Talalay, yes.
Okay.
Who
Yeah.
just done Crybaby, went on to do Time Girl and actually episodes of Sherlock.
Oh.
She's done episodes of Riverdale. She's done an episode of American Gods, an episode of Doom Patrol, which is good. Episodes of The Flash, Supergirl. She's done a lot of TV. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Iron Fist, Doctor Who, Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh.
she's been all over the TV space, and then it's a bunch of stuff as well beyond that.
Yeah, and like I don't want to you know like I don't want to be like too mean to her or something or anything because obviously like she'd been working at New Line for a while and it's cool.
Oh, hold on. Actually, let me correct something. She didn't direct Crybaby. She just produced it. This was her first
Okay.
directing gig. I just wanted to correct that before you.
So yeah, so it's cool that she got the chance to do this, but it's just not the direction that I really like. They I think they kind of call this like the MTV Freddy, where it's he's a pop culture thing now, and he's like showing up on like commercials and doing little talk show bits and stuff, and it's just like way over the top and jokey, which we kind of seen as we go throughout the movies. He gets a little bit more jokey in each one, but it's still like feels like a little more subdued than the other ones, and this is just like full blown like looking at the camera, making jokes, and like doing really obvious parodies. And
I think the other big thing, though, along with the jokes, is just how it's shot. And because one of the big things that's there's two huge problems before you even get to like bad acting and characters and stuff like that. I think the two big problems with this movie, one of them is that there's just no atmosphere. There's just no tone. Like even when he got a bit goofier in some of the other movies, there was constant like, oh, we're still going through dark boiler rooms. It still feels like he's a stalking slasher, killer or whatever. This movie, like, there's a moment when the main character, Maggie, her name is I legit do not recognize the name Maggie, but apparently her name was Maggie.
Yeah.
When she like runs into Freddy for the first time, the shot that it happens in is literally a brightly lit shot. It's like it's in a room that's brightly lit. The camera just starts at his legs and sort of tilts up to get to his face, and he's just standing there as if it's nothing. There's no big entrance. There's no big introduction. It's just this like flat generic shot, and like you think of Freddy's introductions, and okay, the first time we see Freddy in this, yeah, it's over the top and ridiculous. But that's actually the other problem I have with this movie, is that all the dream stuff. First of all, any like rules that existed before about what can happen. There's moments in this movie where I'm not even sure where the dreams are started and ended, because it just does these weird things. Like apparently Freddy can outright kidnap people now and they disappear from the world, and
that really bugged me. Yeah.
we have just weird murky rules that don't make any sense, contradict previous movies. And the actual dreams themselves are so over the top. Instead of just doing the things that we had before, where there was like slow, creepy builds, and I'm not saying there was no over the top dreams before, because the school bus one from 2 is pretty like big, but that at least looked cool and felt hellish. This movie has people falling out of planes and houses flying through the air, and like it just, I don't know, the tone, the feeling of a Nightmare on Elm Street is just gone. It's just this weird. Like every single dream in this felt less like a scene in a horror movie and more like a sketch where they had an idea for just that one thing and just wanted to do each of those things. We want to do the video game one, we want to do this one, we want to do this one, and so on and so on.
I will give it some credit. There is actually one dream sequence that I really, really like. But yeah, most of them aren't that good. And then like I'm okay even with them kind of going like big and over the top, but like yeah, it still has to be like, you still want it to be kind of like weird and creepy. It just gets to the point where it feels like more like a Roadrunner cartoon or something, where it's like he's falling he's like falling from a plane, now he's like inside a tornado, now he's on the ground and a bus is coming. It's like, all right, this is a little too much. So do you know what they say was a big inspiration for this movie? Which they actually say like a lot of it was inspired by Twin Peaks.
There's a Twin Peaks reference in it, but here's the funny thing is that was a really like relative. The reference to Twin Peaks at the time. This came out in 1991. Twin Peaks started, I think, in 1990. So this is like a fresh. Like Twin Peaks is still a new thing at the time.
And which I think so, because what they were saying is like I think they kind of wanted to have I think part of the idea was, let's see how Freddy's like affected like the real world. So that's why they have this like they show this town where like everyone has kind of just been driven insane by Freddy, which I think
a town, by the way, that looks nothing like the town in the previous movies.
Oh yeah, not at all. Yeah, like it feels like a weird the original like towns just felt like just a normal suburban town, but these feel like kind of weird, like Midwestern, like folksy, woodsy kind of place or something. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it feels completely different. And if they were trying to capture any feeling of Twin Peaks, it's not there. Yeah. Like it's
so what I will like kind of give and again, like I think when I was watching this, maybe it's because I had like kind of heard so much like stuff about it leading up to it, that there was a few things that I was maybe like appreciated a little bit more, but it still is not like a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. And it's still, especially like if this is obviously didn't end up being the last one, but if it is kind of like where the franchise ends, like
we'll talk about the demise of Freddy and how it's basically the weakest like demise of him in any of the movies, and it's supposed to be the big final one that actually does him for good. Like it's so weak sauce. Absolutely baffling. There's a couple of actors in here we have to mention.
Sure.
Brecken Meyer, who I knew his face. I'm like, who is this asshole? And he's the main character from Rat Race and Road Trip. Like that, I was like, oh, I know this dude's face.
Yeah, and then like I think he's done like a bunch of like TV stuff now, and like he's definitely a noticeable person. I think he's a little bit more known for like comedy stuff nowadays.
Yeah. But you got Yaphet Kotto, who of course was an alien.
I don't know why he's slumming it in this movie, but
yeah, I mean, it's not like I ever saw him in that much else after Alien, so I guess his career just never really was that fruitful, unfortunately. he's just there reminding me of a better movie, unfortunately. Yeah, I think it's a really rough time.
Roseanne and Tom Arnold.
Oh yeah, they've got cameos. Doesn't Alice Cooper have a cameo? Was Alice Cooper not
Yeah,
in the flashback?
yeah, he's Freddy's dad, I think.
Yeah. We'll get to that in spoilers properly, but yeah. So
Yeah.
Roseanne Barr, of course. I mean now especially, this is like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
But Johnny Depp's got a cameo,
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
which is baffling because like he didn't bother cameoing in the next one, which is the meta one with all the actors playing themselves, but he did show up
Yeah.
for Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare.
So weird.
I know, it's so bizarre. Yeah, just before we get into spoilers, I would just add that like the characters are the worst this franchise has ever had, and the performances for most of them are absolutely dire. The kickboxing girl, especially, I thought her delivery of almost every line was tedious.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could tell they dubbed their lines back in. Maybe they gave her like a second chance, and they just felt really weird and didn't work. And yeah, it's a shame. It's this weird thing where you want to do this big final movie, but it feels like they cheaped it out more than they ever did before. So it's kind of bizarre.
And like and especially too, it feels like kind of weirdly separated from the other movies, because like the last three all felt really connected, like they all
Yeah,
like kind of like had like characters like from the previous movies, and it felt like kind of like a natural continuing storyline. This just kind of feels like, yeah, we just dropped everything, and it feels like there's, we're just going with characters just that,
yeah. I mean,
have no connection or anything.
yeah, really. I mean, really, it was only two that felt separate before, because one naturally leads to three leads to four leads to five. Even if they're all a little bit forced in some ways, especially like 4 and 5, where it feels like they're killing off half the characters that survive just so they can quickly use their new characters. But yeah, really unfortunate that they do that. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about it. Let's go spoilers. Full spoilers for Freddy's Dead: Final Nightmare. You've been warned. So this movie actually gave me hope. I want to tell you about how in the first minute it gave me hope that it might actually be fun bad and not just terrible. And I've seen it before, but it's been such a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
But so it starts off on a plane, and it obviously turns out to be a nightmare. It's not real, but this he's referred to as John Doe because no one knows his name. So John Doe is on a plane, and he's talking to the flight attendant, and she doesn't let him move seat. And he just mentions to the person sitting next to him that he's afraid of heights, so he's scared. And this fat woman sitting next to him, without skipping a beat, just goes, "Stop being a pussy," and then just goes back to what she's doing. And that made me laugh. I was like, that was actually kind of funny. Like, maybe this will be so bad. And then within seconds, he's falling through the sky. He wakes up in like a bed in a house, but he's still dreaming. And Freddy becomes the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz and flies past the window.
Yeah. That's a little too much. Like, I do kind of like the idea of like, all right, yeah, he wakes up in his bed, and he thinks he's safe, and then like he looks out and it's like, he's still seeing that he's in the sky. Like I think that's kind of a cool idea. But then once you bring like, Freddy into it as doing like a Wicked Witch kind of thing, that's like, all right, this is way too like over the line. And like, and I'm not necessarily against jokey Freddy. Like, that can be fine, but like, it's not like, as long as if he's cracking jokes, but he's still being menacing, whatever. But this, it's just like, no, you're not even trying to be like scary or intimidating. You're just like, I don't know, doing like a weird pop culture reference.
Yeah, very odd. There's a lot of weird references. Just wait until we get to the Nintendo stuff.
Oh god.
But here's the weird thing. So there's a couple of other moments during this. There's a scene during this nightmare where he actually the kid rolls down a hill, and it lasts a long time where he's just rolling and tumbling down this hill, and he ends up in a bus, and he ends up getting thrown through like it's like the world has like a glass screen, and he goes through it, and he's in daylight now, and Freddy's on the other side looking beyond, and he's like, right, go get her for me. And he's like, and here's, so this is where I'm confused, is like, this kid legit wakes up in the road here as if Freddy has somehow actually transported him while he was sleeping.
Yeah, I I don't know.
And we know that he's really woken up here
Yeah,
because he's near this city, because he's there to find Freddy's daughter, which gets us into the
yeah,
sequelitis of this, where it retcons all of this backstory stuff in it. Now, don't get me wrong, the series has done this before to an extent. You know, 3 introduced a lot more stuff to the backstory of Freddy Krueger, but
yeah,
it served a purpose because it was all about, you know, where his bones would be and all that kind of thing. And it didn't contradict or feel like tacked on, or whereas this feels squeezed in. Like,
yeah,
when we found out how he was conceived, it was all before the Freddy that we'd heard about in the
yeah,
first movie. This is saying no, he had all this other stuff going on whilst he was being this child killer.
yeah. So, well, two things I want to bring up. First, I don't know if they really do this that much in the other movies, and maybe I just didn't notice it. But what I find weird in this opening sequence is that, the whole point with Freddy and stuff is that he kills you in your dreams and you die in real life. But in this, he's doing stuff to this guy that should kill him, but he doesn't die. Like when he gets hit, like, full on by a bus, like
Yeah,
he should be dead,
no,
right?
it's legit Roadrunner physics. Like
Yeah.
he's allowed to throw him around in ways that would absolutely destroy him, but it doesn't kill him. You're right.
But like, and I feel, and I don't know, maybe there was like some stuff like that in the other movies, but maybe you just don't notice it because it's just done a lot better. But that really stood out to me in this, where it's like, okay, why is he not dead right now?
But no, as a cartoon, you're right. He gets hit by a bus, and he's just like on the front of the bus with his arms like
Yeah.
sprawled out. It's a cartoon. It is.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the first thing. So the second thing with these flashbacks, so it feels like the movie is trying to, sell you this thing where, oh, like this kid is he's Freddy's son, and like that's, and then like, the big twist later on is like, oh wait, no, Freddy didn't have a son, he had a daughter, and it feels like they're trying to set up that big like swerve for you, but then right in the beginning here they show you a flashback with like a little girl, so it's like,
Yeah,
we know she's
yeah,
a little girl.
we know the whole movie that it's a girl, that it's a daughter.
Yeah.
I actually skipped over the first thing I wanted to talk about, even before the opening scenes.
Okay.
Right, so the movie opens with a quote.
Oh, okay, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, the movie opens with a quote of Nietzsche, right? And that, okay, that's fine. And then it jokingly goes to a quote of Freddy saying, "Welcome
Yeah.
to prime time, bitch." And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? That was amusing. I'll give you that. But the first sign that you know that this movie has moved beyond what the tone and the spirit of Nightmare on Elm Street is that it comes up with this map of the country, right? The US map comes up on the screen, and it's like it's almost like a scene from Escape from New York, where you hear the do 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 as it's like explaining like exposition, and it's like there are no teenagers or children left in Springwood. They've all been murdered by Freddy Krueger, and the adults that have been left behind have snapped and had psychotic breaks. But Freddy is looking to leave or something like that, right? And it's the opening from like a science fiction movie from the early 80s, and I'm like, what is this? Who thought this was in the spirit of Nightmare on Elm Street? I don't know. Like, none of it just feels like any of the movies. It's really weird. So I couldn't not mention this map and the computer sound effects. It was just like, who's telling us this? Where is this information coming from? At least with Escape from New York.
Bizarre.
Escape from New York and movies like that, you get the sense that even if it's not literal, it's like this is the sort of message that they're sending each other in their like
Right.
future systems and stuff and whatnot. But this is just like who what's the context of this?
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's so weird.
It's baffling. So this leads to being introduced to our characters of the movie. John Doe's picked up and taken to this halfway home for troubled teens and whatnot. And we meet, Tracy, who's the kickboxer one. We meet Carlos, who, for some reason, the first time we meet these two characters, she's like kicking a boxing bag, a punching bag. That's the phrase I was looking for. She's punching and kicking that, and Carlos comes up and says something like, "Oh, you're sexy when you sweat," and she has this really badly dubbed line where she's clearly not saying that in the filming. But she looks over at him and says twice. In fact, she goes, "You're not getting any. You're not getting any." Like, she kind of says it twice. It's a really weird way to say it. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is not because of the weird dubbing thing here, even though that was an odd little quibble. It's that it feels like it's setting up in their first scene together that he's got a thing for her, and that's going to be a through line in the movie. Not once for the rest of the film does he say anything or do anything or imply that he's any way attracted to her, and there's not a single hint of romance for the rest of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, it's these kids are just really like boring. Like I don't think there's anything interesting about them. Like there's and again when we had such like likable characters in the past couple of movies where it felt like, oh cool, like I get their personalities. These are just very like surface level, like, all right, she's the girl that's always angry and like looking for a fight, and then he's
got a hearing aid.
Yeah, that like that's the extent of his character.
Yeah, and then, Breckin Myers, the stoner.
Yeah.
That's
like
kind of it.
That's it.
And so John Doe's here, and for some reason, I always like. There's a line of dialogue in the scene where he's talking to Maggie for the first time, who turns out to be Freddy Krueger's daughter, and she's like running this place, or she doesn't run the place, but she works there. And I always remember a line of dialogue. I didn't know it was from this movie, but there's a moment where he's saying, "Oh, do you have anything to drink or whatever, or some energy, or or some coke?" And she gives him this look, and he's like, "I meant the drink." And for some reason, I always remember that exchange, and I don't know why.
It's like so stupid, and like I do think it seems like it's trying to be really forced, like a joke, but like. At the same time, it's stupid because it's like no one would think that you are talking about the drug. Like they would.
No one, no.
Yeah.
Yes, and even if this kid, I mean, we know he's not actually a junkie. They're just assuming he is because he was found in the street. But even like why would he expect to just be able to ask for that and get it? Like,
yeah,
like nothing about it makes sense for him for that's what he's saying. None of it. So the other kids want to plan a breakout, so they're going to hide in the van, and it just so happens that they've got like a dream psychologist, if that's the correct term, which is Coulter's character from Alien, and he's like trying to talk about her recurring dreams and blah blah, and she finds out she's having the same recurring dream as John Doe, the one of the little girl in the backyard, and clearly Robert Englund is Freddy, pre-burning and whatnot, and she's like, okay, you keep dreaming of this place, Springwood. Let's go to Springwood and see what it's like, and this will trigger your memories. Because he's got amnesia. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know where he's from. He's scared to go back, but they go back. And the other kids have snuck away in the van as well, so they end up with them. And she's pissed about it. They encounter like a fair of the adults. And this is where we get Roseanne and Tom Arnold. And some odd, they say, oh, this is just like Twin Peaks. And then they walk out of the scene.
Like I don't think it's necessarily like a bad idea. Like I do think it is interesting to see like a whole town that's gone crazy, and then like have like these adults are just like so freaked out and scared that their kids are going to get burned that like no one is having kids anymore and stuff. Like I think there's a good idea in it, but then it's just not executed with any level of like any kind of interesting atmosphere about it or anything. Like it's like that could be like a weird, cool, creepy thing. But
it plays more as just a little joke, and the fact that you've got these two comedians at the time being the main characters we meet, it gives it this weird feeling that it's not building any, because if you came into town it was depressing, and all the people who did want kids left so they could go and have kids somewhere else, but there was just these loners that were left by who didn't care anymore and were just all miserable. Like you could do something with that. But it doesn't jive. So Maggie and John Doe go to the school to investigate and try and find out things, and they see books of all the missing kids. There's a teacher who's like scribbling on the chalkboard and being kind of weird. And John Doe just kind of puts it together that he's got a daughter, or he's got a kid, not a daughter, but he's got a child. Because we didn't just do a dream child in the last movie, I reckon. Here's the thing I love about this though. It's not actually in this scene, but I'm just going to mention it because it's in a classroom, and it made me think of it. Is we might have actually finally topped the and he's an orphan, and he's an orphan from Halloween 4. Because we see a flashback at one point where Freddy, as a young child, is in school, and the kids are chanting at him, "Son of 100 maniacs, son of 100 maniacs." All the kids knew this. They all knew his mother had been raped by 100 maniacs. Like, when did that information get out to the school kids?
I guess so. That is insane.
Dear.
Yeah, I did not like any of the Freddy flashbacks.
Oh no, I hated them all. The one where, I mean, I guess we're skipping ahead to this now. We can put them anywhere really. Is Alice Cooper is his father coming down, and he's this bright red-headed teenager, and he's got his belt off, and he's like, "You ready for your medicine?" And Alice Cooper, bless him, is not much of an actor, so it's very clunky. But the worst part of it all, though, the worst part of the flashbacks is that it does this retcon, and it tries to explain why he still exists and does these dream stuff. Like, it tries to explain why he has the powers that he does. Something that no one ever really cared about asking back in the original. It was just the idea that he was such an awful spirit that it was so strong that he stuck around and it became this thing. That was all we ever needed. But no, in this, the dream psychiatrist is like, he's got like a painting on his wall of these like snake head things, and it's like, oh, these are dream demons and blah 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 blah. And then we see the scene.
They look like sperm to me, but
they actually did. Yeah, well, when you see them floating around properly, they do. Yeah, but you know, we get the scene of like the parents like throwing in the Molotovs and stuff to burn them, and he's standing there in his red and green.
And just in case, if he had no idea, yes. This last section of the movie was in 3D.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we go through the main plot.
When they're throwing like the bottle that's on fire and stuff, it's just like coming at you and just like the most like 3D.
The last chunk that's in 3D is there in 3D on the Blu-ray as a separate like extra if you want to watch it that way. And I do have some red and blue glasses from funnily enough, my Friday the 13th box set came with a couple for the third movie. But no, we get these spirits who basically say, "Hey, accept us into your body, and you will, be able to do what you want forever," or something like that. Like, I can't remember what the line was, but they talk to him, and he accepts it.
Yeah, it's like, if this is supposed to be such like a big, important like revelation kind of thing, I feel like you need to spend more time explaining it and talking about what it means, but it does it so quickly.
It's nonchalant. Do you know what it feels like? It feels like a throwaway plot in an episode of I don't know, the X-Files or something, or like Charmed or something.
Yeah, it's like as fast as them just being like, "Hey, you want to keep doing what you're doing?" "Yes, I want to." "Okay," like, and that's it. It's like,
and they're inside
Jesus,
him.
really?
Yeah, they go inside him, and it explains why he's still around. And yeah, if I just to elaborate on my comparison there, Joe, what it is? It's the opening scene of a TV show. You know how you have a Freak of the Week, you have the opening scene before the credits, you have the quick setup of who the villain is. That's what this scene is. It's the quick setup to explain who the villain is for the rest of the episode. And you'll notice I did not compare it to another supernatural show that I could have, because I will not sully the hit television show with this movie. Thank you very much.
Another like weird thing too, like when you think about it, is like there's so many abusive dads in this movie. Like, everyone has like an abusive dad.
Oh yeah, all the runaway kids. Yeah, because
so it's like so like Freddy himself, and
obviously
then
yes,
also Freddy to his kid, and then also like Spencer's dad, is clobbers him in the video game, and then Tracy's dad, and then I forget if there's another one, but like it's just like, it's so much in this. It's crazy.
Yeah, they all have scenes in one of their dreams where they encounter their father in some way. And in Tracy's case, that's the kickboxing girl. She has clearly been abused by her father sexually, and like she fights him back. And by the way, for the record, this is not a movie that should be handling such topics as sexual assault and abuse.
Yeah, it is like way too serious of an issue to bring up in this like very bad movie.
Yeah, and this very silly movie. So basically, once they're separated in town, they go to the school. They kind of learn this. The other kids just pick a house, and I think it's meant to be the Nancy house from the first movie.
I think so. Yeah.
It doesn't look anything like it though inside. but I think that's
No.
just a mistake. I don't think that's because it's not that house. So I think the stoner does fall asleep first, or is it no? Maybe the deaf kid does first.
Yeah. So yeah, so I like that, this is when like the dream sequences start, and I will actually give credit. I do like Carlos's like whole dream thing. I think
Well, I like it in theory. I have some logical problems.
okay.
Because the whole idea is that he first takes away his hearing aid, and Freddy's like sneaking up behind him, and he can't hear, and we don't hear anything either. It just the sound just goes numb, as it were. And I thought, okay, this is a fun idea. The idea that he's sneaking around and we can see him, but he can't hear him. So that's actually kind of a nice little idea. And then he does the opposite thing where he gives him super hearing so that everything's super loud. Also, I like this idea. And he starts dropping things that are loud or clanking things to make him feel pain from the sound. And he drops a single nail, and it's going to hit the metal grating in the boiler room or whatever it is. Okay, fine. My problem here is that because he's scared of the noise, Carlos leaps to catch the nail before it hits the floor. Here's my problem.
Oh, okay.
You're telling me the sound of his entire body hitting the floor is not louder than a single nail?
Yeah.
Or him himself screaming at Freddy to stop and please don't is not louder than... No, don't get me wrong. The fight at the moment after this where Freddy drops an entire handful of nails and they just all like clank at different... Because it's kind of like that like super sensitive hearing effect they do in movies where everything's turned up and it's like thump, thump, thump and all that. Fun idea. I think there's some weird execution in there, but I get why you like it.
No, I mean that's totally fair. Yeah, there's some logic issues with it. I guess if you really wanted to, you could probably just, I don't know, maybe chalk some of it up to just being weird dream logic-y stuff, I guess. But like, yeah, but I mean overall though, yeah, I like the idea. And then it does annoy me though. Like I do think one of the best parts is when he loses his hearing aid and then everything goes quiet, and then it sucks though because that could have been a genuinely creepy scene where he's walking around and you see Freddy in the background, but of course since this is Funtime Freddy, he's not like creepily sneaking, he's like behind him like jumping up and down like waving, going like hey, hello, like
shh, and things like that.
Yeah, which again, like this is like Bugs Bunny shit, like it's I don't know, and maybe if like I don't know. I guess you could kind of just laugh at it, but I don't know. It's a little more annoying to me than it is like funny.
Yeah, in fact, isn't this the? No, it's not him. It's the other kid. But so yeah, that's basically him done for, and then
Eventually like his head just explodes from all of it, which
all the sound,
it's kind of cool. Yeah.
And then Spencer the stoner is watching like TV. And we get this weird Johnny Depp cameo where he's cracking eggs. And then Freddy pulls him into the TV in his dream. Although they can't find him later, so he is actually physically gone, which is weird. And like, that was never a thing before, but all of a sudden people are vanishing.
Yeah, like he could like manipulate people because like in the first movie, he drags the person up across the wall. So like, you can make some
Yeah, now you've mentioned that, that's the other thing that pissed me off in this movie, is how inconsistent like their movement in the dreams would also happen in real life. There's points in this movie where you have John Doe walking upstairs in his dream and you see him walking up in thin air like in the house, and it's like meant to be this whoa, but then there's other times where they're just lying there still the entire time no matter what they're doing in the dream. It's completely inconsistent. Yeah,
it's like there's just like a lot of issues with it, but yeah, I mean, I think we always kind of figured like, maybe he can like kind of move around and manipulate bodies and stuff like a little bit, but not to this degree. And then especially when people just start straight up disappearing, it's like, okay, what is this now?
Yeah, I mean, hell, yeah, because eventually at one point in the dream he straps a parachute to John Doe, and he legit starts like floating in the air like that high up, and I'm like, and sure, he did drag people around in the first movies and stuff. You remember Tina in the first one go up at the ceiling and stuff, but it felt very low-key compared to the shit that's happening in this one where they're flying all over the place. Very weird. Very weird. And it also only seemed to happen in the original movies when he was physically grabbing them, or whereas in this, like, John Doe's walking on his own upstairs and it's making him float in the air, like, bizarre. So yeah, so this is a video game one where he's in a side-scrolling video game, and Freddy's playing the game, and it's meant to be funny, and it's just kind of goofy. The others realize that he's in trouble. That being Tracy. It's just when John Doe and that get back from the school and whatnot, and he insists to be knocked out so he can go into the dream and get him. So keep in mind, this was a big deal in the third movie and the fourth movie, that this was a power that some people had, that they could go into the other person's dream and help. For some reason, he can just do this.
Yeah.
There's no explanation. There's no nothing.
Yeah.
He can just do it. So he goes in, and so does Tracy. But what's weird is he insists she knock him out to put him to sleep, and punches her just so she'll hit him. And then she appears in the dream like seconds later and goes, "See, I told you there's other ways. You just have to, have your inner peace and like calm your mind and go to sleep, man."
Yeah, it was stupid.
Yeah, which leads to one of the most memorable moments of the movie is when they smash his game controller so he can't control Spencer anymore, and he then says, "You forgot about the power glove." And his Freddy glove has turned into a power glove kind of like hybrid where he's got controls on it. Like, how much did Nintendo pay for this, do you think? Did they pay for it? I don't know.
Good question. I have no idea.
Because at one point when he's playing the game, he's even like, "Now you're playing with power." And I'm like, "Oh, stop it. Stop with the references."
Yeah, I wonder though, like how many, like people watching this nowadays, like how many people even like get these references?
Yeah, I feel like probably a decent percentage just now, just because the people who are probably watching Freddy's Dead are probably people who are old enough and grew up with it or whatever. But yeah, young horror fans who are like seeking out all these old movies, especially if they're not like gamers or anything like that and don't know gaming history, like they're not going to get this playing with power line or the power glove.
Like even like someone like in their 20s or something that might be watching this for the first time, like they that kind of stuff would have been like 10 years old by then, that they probably had like no idea what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably recognize it. I mean, they're still side-scrolling games, and they've probably seen old games.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But talking about advertising slogans like that, and Sega does what Nintendo and all that stuff. Like, I feel like, I mean, not that I was around for that either. I sort of learned that over time because I'm into games, and I learned it over time. But I'm sure there's probably references in this that I don't get.
Yeah, and then and one thing I wasn't really sure about. So when he's playing, is he controlling Spencer or is he controlling the other characters that are attacking Spencer?
He's controlling Spencer because he's making him jump around, because there's that goofy scene where he's like jumping up and it's like a really bad visual effect of him like bouncing.
Yeah.
And it's that's Freddy making him jump.
But then I feel like there were like, some points where it seemed like he was doing his own thing. I don't know. It seemed kind of weird.
Are you saying it was inconsistent in its logic and rules? Are you saying that Freddy's Dead does not know how to be coherent? Is that what you're saying to me, Timothy?
Maybe just in this one instance. just that one.
So obviously they don't save him. I don't even remember how he died. How did Spencer die? And I watched this last night. Just for the record, I watched this last night. I don't remember who died.
Does he like fall into something, or I don't know. So I remember he's getting like beat up by like his dad with a tennis racket
in the game.
Yeah, and then I don't know. I want to say like he like jumps and falls and something, but I don't know, I could be wrong. I just watched this yesterday too.
Anyway, so just to speed up to the next little bit, because there's another dream. We get the reveal that it's actually his daughter, and that's when John Doe dies above the van in the parachute. So it's just Maggie and Tracy that have survived. They go to the doctor. They go to Koto, or Koto, maybe say pronounce his last name, if I've been getting that wrong. And he goes into a dream himself, and he discovers what we already know from the first movie, is that if you grab him, he brings back a piece of his sweater, so we know that if you can bring him out of the real world, then maybe we can fight him. And Isn't it so long? And there's a scene where like Maggie like suspects it's her, so she goes back to like her mum and finds out she's adopted and sort of confirms it, and it's all this thing. And basically Freddy's whole plot with her was that he could essentially like go into her body so that he could like, because has it ever been mentioned ever in the history of this franchise that he can't like attack anyone outside of Springwood?
I don't believe so.
But he gets to leave now. That's what he wanted her for.
Yeah.
He can leave in her blood, or he can leave in her because she has his blood. Blah blah blah. And we get the final thing is that he puts her under the doctor does to go to sleep and gives her 3D glasses. And the justification for this is that in the dream these can be anything. Well, why does she need to hold them then? She can just do it in her dream. Like what are you doing?
It doesn't make any sense.
So it's just about her finding Freddy, which doesn't take very long. There's a couple of really awkward slow motion things coming at the camera for 3D sake. That's all whatever. But here's the thing. It's so goofy. See when she gets to him, she puts her arms around him, and it takes like a minute for them to wake her up. So she's literally just like holding him, and he's like struggling for like a whole minute. Like, what? He's this slasher killer. He doesn't have enough strength to break out of this grip. Like, what? What?
No, it's it's very stupid. I don't know what else to say about it.
Luckily, they confiscate so many weapons from the troubled youths at this place that there's literally a weapons locker with a variety of blades and knives and a pipe bomb, and randomly a crossbow pops up at one point out of nowhere. So here's the thing. So they bring him out into the real world. He's not there in the room with them, but they find him in the basement. So here's probably the biggest thing that pisses me off about the goal to see this is the end of the journey. This is the end of the Nightmare on Elm Street saga. Is that the final fight with Freddy, where he's taken down, takes place in the entirety of one room, while he stands still and just waits for her to throw things at him. She throws swords at him and knives and eventually a pipe bomb which makes him blow up. And she crossbows him. Like, he gets pinned to the wall with all these blades and he just stands there and waits for it. There's no direction. There's no like sense of like tension or sense of like an actual fight taking place. It's just him standing there and taking all this punishment until they eventually blow him up and kill him. That's the whole scene. It's nothing. And it's just these flat shots of her standing there with her weapons. It looks like a cheap TV show. It's garbage. There's no climax. Like, 3 had the perfect ending. As much as I think 4's a really fun movie, 3's ending was the way to end the franchise. It was perfect. They found these bones.
Oh, sure.
They had all the kids team up to take him on. This is just one character we don't care about throwing blades at him in one location in a basement, and that is the whole thing.
Yeah, it's super boring. It's not like a good battle. I forget. Does she? At one point, his glove comes off. Does she put it on?
Yeah, she puts it on and stabs him. Okay. Yeah, because he's all like, "Oh, it's in your blood. Put it on."
Yeah. And again, it's like a weird thing where like it seems like he wants to have like this like a child protege or something. It just feels like a weird like thing that was never brought up in any of the other movies. Like, there's so much like mythology. It feels like that they're just introducing now for just really like clumsily and stupidly. Just
for the sake of being able to end it and say, oh, here's a quick fix for all these things. It's really lazy writing. It's just retconning all these things in.
And I also love that like they're in. I don't know. It feels like it's like a steel cage or something, and I like that when Kodo just.
There's fencing. There's fencing in a door. I don't know if I'd call it a cage, but yeah. But
it's like a the door though. It's like it's like a barred thing.
Oh sure. Like, I think it's because that's like where all the weapons and stuff are kept. Yeah. It's like an area they can lock and people can't break into.
But that should be pretty strong, right?
Yeah. Well, I think
strong enough.
That he's going at it with like an axe or something for like a long time before he eventually does just rip it off with his bare hands.
which is what like that's what I'm getting at. It's just like it's kind of crazy that and again like he hasn't Kodo hasn't had much to do in the movie up until now, and then it's kind of funny that he's just able to like rip off this like door. Like I don't know. It's funny.
And then he when Freddy like technically dies, we see the 3 like sperm spirits like leave his body, and they're like, well, I guess we're going elsewhere now. And I'm like, I like, everything. I hate this movie. This like
I'm like, and it's not just. I mean, you can't just have him like blow up. Of course, he has to get one last little joke in. So he like literally turns to the camera and just says, "Kids," and like it blows up.
yeah, and the final moment of the movie is like there's not much after this. They literally go out into the hall, and Maggie just turns to the others and goes, "Freddy's dead." Hit the credits, and so that's just super cheesy for a start. And I am so glad this was not Robert Englund's last time playing the character, because this is such an awful thing to go out on. Obviously you have Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but that's a weird meta thing though, and obviously it's fun and there's good things about that. But I think actually Freddy vs Jason, while it may not be perfect, and obviously we're going to get to that and talk about it in depth, I think at the very least it feels like more of a proper send off for what I'll say is solid mid-tier Freddy Krueger. And when I say that, what I mean is, Freddy Krueger and Freddy vs. Jason feels like 3, 4, 5 Freddy. It doesn't necessarily feel like one super intimidating Freddy, but it went back to having like dark scenes of him in boiler rooms, and it went back to having him stalk people and care about killing people, and not just cracking jokes. Like before, when he cracked jokes at the expense of the person he was about to kill. Whereas now he's just cracking pop culture references and just doing silly shit.
Yeah, it's like again, I don't mind the jokes, like, but as long as they are, in a way that's meant to be menacing and to like, mess with the kids and stuff. Where now it's just like he's like working an audience, like he's trying to make you laugh. He's not like worried about killing people. And then also I gotta say, while we're talking about Freddy and stuff, like I thought he looked awful.
Yeah, he looked worse.
Like,
yeah,
the makeup was not good.
And I'll be honest, it feels cheaper. And I'll be honest as well, I do think, and I don't know if it's just because the movie's bad and he knew it, but I feel like Robert Englund's performance in this also feels a little bit phoned in. It doesn't feel like it has the same energy that the earlier movies did. It feels very kind of tired, and I think it's clear that for New Nightmare, it was this fresh new take, and it was back with Craven, so he was motivated again. And then I think Freddy vs. Jason, it was more of a proper send-off, and it was so long since he'd played the character when that movie events, because it'd been a good 10 years when they got to Freddy vs. Jason after New Nightmare. I think he was happy to come back and do it one more time, kind of thing, So, and I wouldn't rule out him doing it one more time again if they want to do the Halloween thing and like bring the real Freddy Krueger back for one movie. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I think with like Halloween, being so popular, and horror making this resurgence, I do feel like we're gonna get one more with him.
And I think his age, because he's still, last I seen him anyway in an interview or whatever, he looks still kind of healthy enough, and because he's all in makeup, it doesn't really matter as much that he's obviously 30 years older than when he started doing it. So not a huge deal. The movie sucks. We didn't really mention the scene where he kills his wife. I just wanted to point out that happened before we. What were you going to say, Tim?
Oh, I mean, the best part of the movie probably is the credits, is the showing all the like best kills from like the whole series and stuff. So
even that feels really cheap to me, because it's just this really awkward split screen. It looks like a TV show. Do you know when a TV show squishes it to the side so they can show like an extra scene? That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer did that once in its entire run, I believe. Okay. It was season 1. It was the puppet show. They showed their performance at the talent show during the end titles. The only time it ever happened, I believe. Okay. So there you go. But hey, I mean, I guess we need to rate it, Tim. But I mean,
it's tough. I mean, there's so much stuff that I don't like about it, but at the same time, like, with like a nightmare movie, like at least you are like, still getting, even if like not all the kills work, at least it is still more interesting than just like, him stabbing people 20 times. So I don't know, I feel I want to give it like a little credit. And again, I do really like, Carlos's death enough to bump that up a bit, but man, just what like a bad send off like all around. But I'll still give it a let's say maybe a 3, I guess. I mean, still super low, but like, again, like I still I love the series so much that like I can't, you know, like be too harsh on it, I guess. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. I am going to go with a 2. I think it's pretty damn garbage and is easily the. And I say this having not seen the remake yet, so maybe I'll change my mind when I see
Oh
that.
boy.
But for me, it's easily the worst in the franchise. Actually, one final little tidbit I just want to mention: just for people who watch Dark, when they're looking through the wanted posters, well, not wanted, the missing posters, I mean to say.
Yeah.
One of the kids they show in this in the missing posters looks exactly like the kid from season 1 of Dark who goes missing, and it just really weirded me out. I thought, oh, that's really weird. I shared it on Twitter for anyone who was paying attention, and this was months ago now. By the time you see this, but still.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is Freddy's Dead. That is the 6th Nightmare on Elm Street movie, which means that we only have a New Nightmare, Freddy vs Jason, and the remake to go. Where we're actually nearing the end of the race. And we're going to get through it. And we're making a point here of trying to do at least one of all the sequels of the franchises we've been working on during Octoberthon, which is exciting for one of them actually, because one of them will be finishing in this Octoberthon, which is really cool. But we're trying to at least get a nice batch of them done for the month, amongst all the other like the standalone movies we're doing, and we're still picking those. Like we haven't picked all those in advance. We're sort of just kind of getting all the sequels and things we know we need to do first, and then we're going to have fun just picking some random movies and ticking some things off the box. But ticking boxes, I meant to say. Anyway, so that is Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. Obviously, let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. Like and subscribe. You can support us, of course, on the audio podcast version by giving us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio podcasts from. You can support us even more than that, though, financially, if you go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and you get bonuses, including bonus episodes once per month of Streams After Midnight that are exclusive to Patreon. And in fact, on the Octoberthon, you're not even just getting 1, you're getting 4 this month. So $1 per month gets you access to that, as well as exclusive stuff with other content we do on the channel and other podcasts we have. So go have a look and check it out. Otherwise, though, get us on Twitters at Streams Midnight and follow some of the shenanigans that me and Tim share with each other on there. And yeah, check out other content we have. Obviously, we've got tons of horror movie episodes this month because it is the Octoberthon. But check out the ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, or sci-fi movie podcast that I do with Tara. Check out our TV reviews that I do with Connor. Check out all the other stuff we do. There's a nice list of all the content on Patreon, so go have a look-see. Anyway, that has been us. That has been Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Don't keep watching TV. This is not a TV review. Keep watching horror movies, but since I made that mistake, I will end with the following line. Welcome to prime time, bitch!